Hey guys, just finished watching Swamp Thing, Season 1, Episode 2, Worlds Apart. Oh my god, what an episode. This show is so amazing, it's so good, and some of the reasons behind that is because of the budget of this show, or the cost that it came out to the show. It sounds like it's around $80 million. That is more than they spent on the first Deadpool movie. So that's just kind of amazing as to how it shows that when you put the money into it, it becomes a great show, and you can make a great show. You just have to put the effort and put the actual budget towards what it needs, you know. Now, unfortunately, because of this, they have canceled this show, and it's confirmed that we will not be getting another season or anything like that. So that's really going to be disappointing, and we'll have to wait and see as to how this affects going forward for this season. It does sound like that they were supposed to be doing 13 episodes and they got cut down to 10 episodes, so they got to force an ending with whatever they have filmed and stuff. So that's going to be really disappointing to see as to how things go with this show. But so far, I think it's going to be interesting to see as to where things start to kind of dive down for this show. Does the ending start to kind of get muddied? Because so far in the first 2 episodes, this show is amazing. The quality is amazing. Everything is amazing. And this is what I'd love to promote with not just this show being great, being awesome, and is to promote this with other shows. Because when Disney Plus comes out with their $100 million shows, they have the Star Wars shows coming out, they got the Falcon and Winter Soldier and all the Marvel shows, and those have those have built-in fan base. They know for sure they can spend that money. So I understand it's a bit difficult to spend that money, but I think we need to start promoting the TV shows and acknowledging them and pushing the companies to making higher, more expensive shows, you know, like this, $80 million, $100 million, you know, pushing a lot more money into these shows and ignoring these garbage shows that don't have nearly the same amount of budget as this. So we're going to have to wait and see as to where things go with this show. Fingers crossed that it gets picked up. I saw some rumors online a little bit about HBO and CW being interested into it, and I think those two could be really interesting if either of them pick it up. The other thing is that CW, if it picks it up, they're probably not going to give it an $80 million budget, and I think that's kind of disappointing, and that's where it would fail, is if it went to CW and it didn't have the right amount of budget. So if CW picks it up and they're willing to give it $80 million, $100 million for a full season, then sure, good on them. I don't see them doing that. It's more likely that HBO would give them $100 million. You know, maybe Netflix could pick this up. Who knows? Who knows if they're willing to spend $100 million on a TV show like this? I mean, I think they have quite a few movies, out there like this, but their movies have, the movies are able to be put out in theaters too and all that stuff. So who knows? We're going to wait and see as to where things could go with this. I think it would be quite interesting to see as to how things would go with this show. But I'm really excited to see as to how things go for the future, because this show is amazing. So let's get into the review specifically of this episode 2, Worlds Apart. We start off the episode with Swamp Thing kind of, he's connecting to the little girl, Susie and stuff, throughout this episode. There's some sort of connection there, I guess because she's infected by that, so that's kind of interesting there. So that'll be cool to see where that kind of goes. And then we see that Abby, finding that she's trying to, get into Alec Holland's, his lab and stuff, and she goes to where is it, Avery Sunderland, which is kind of interesting, and he doesn't allow her in the lab and stuff because he has things that are kind of proprietary and all that stuff. So that was kind of interesting there, that she's not allowed in the lab. And then we get introduced to a new character, Daniel Cassidy, aka Blue Devil. So that's kind of interesting. Now, when I saw the character, and I was like, oh, and then you see his laptop. His laptop has the background is Blue Devil and stuff. So I googled Blue Devil, and sure enough, Blue Devil is a character from the 80s who first appeared actually in Firestorm number 24 in 1984. So that's kind of an interesting type character. Whereas what it says here, I didn't know anything about the character at all. I didn't even know if it was a character. That's why I had to Google it. But the way they kind of set up the Easter egg, it's very obvious that it's a character that they're going to be setting up in the show and stuff. So I'm excited to see as to where he goes, because in the comics, at least from what I've been reading on the wikis, there is that he's kind of has this. He makes this kind of, he's an actor just like in this show, and makes a costume. He's like a stunt performer, and instead of doing digital effects, he makes a practical costume that can do all kinds of stuff. and he becomes locked and stuck in that costume that has, these kind of super duper, these powers, and it makes like a staff that does something. So I think that could be something really interesting to see as to where things go with this. And had this show had been, continued on, he could have been an interesting character kind of to get a spin-off show from that. I think that could have been really cool, setting Blue Devil later on getting a spin-off. But with this show getting canceled and stuff, the odds of him getting a spin-off is very likely, and I don't think they were even going to. And at this point, it's just we need to focus on saving Swamp Thing. So hashtag save Swamp Thing is definitely something we need to spam all over the internet. So we get here, we see Daniel. That was really cool seeing that. So that'd be cool to see as to where he goes with Blue Devil. And then we see that Susie ends up escaping the hospital and stuff. And that's where she ends up in the swamp and all that, and Swamp Thing ends up saving her, which was really cool seeing the guy going after her with like the machete and stuff and all that there. I mean, it would have been interesting because it's kind of a bit weird how the guy just kind of, he's just wanting to just kill people or something like that out of fear for this guy. So it'd be interesting to get a bit more of a backstory onto into why the guy was so scared of Avery Sunderland and stuff, because we see him threatening people, but we don't really feel how, if you feel definitely how powerful he is and how he's controlling the town and stuff, and he has the money to really able to do stuff to people. But I'd like to get an example of that, of how he's kind of, how he's so powerful type thing. I mean, it just doesn't seem like, at this point, so far he's the villain of the show, but then there's obviously, the Swamp Thing mythos with like the rot and stuff being part of the villain too of this show, which is from the comics and stuff, the stuff that I've looked up before watching the show and stuff. It's going to be interesting to see as to where they bring that in. But getting to Avery Sunderland, I'd like to see just a little bit more of an example to seeing how powerful he is, to see him do some things, to see him do something like his moment. That's pretty much like Wilson Fisk slamming the car door and busting the guy's head open. His moment like that, and not just him doing things like that, but just kind of him, just showing his power and showing him killing someone or having someone killed for minute things. Just, I think, to show how powerful he is, that he's willing to do that. He's not scared of the police or anything like that, and he straight up runs the town type thing. And I think that would be a little bit interesting just to show us a bit more, so that we can get the idea as to why this guy was so bent on going after and killing everyone, just because they got caught by a cop, and then the girl saw everything, I mean, at that point, he already killed one guy. Obviously, he has to run after and kill this little girl, because he can't let that little girl get away, run away with, after seeing him kill this thing, right? This cop type thing. So, but just him jumping to the idea of killing, I don't know, would like to have seen a little bit more of the kind of the weight behind, show us the weight of Avery Sunderland. We see that Abby again sees the Swamp Thing, but full on straight up sees him, not like a flash, not really fast. So I think that was really interesting with that. And then we see that we've also find out that Susie was able to talk to Swamp Thing, or we didn't see it, but she said she talked to him, and she said his name was Alex type thing. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how they go with this show. Are they going to go comic book accurate, where is it actually going to be Alex in there, still physically in there? Or is it going to be how in the comics, if not mistaken, it's kind of, the swamp thinks it's Alex. It absorbs his consciousness. It's not really Alex. It just believes it's Alex to an extreme points, right? So I think that could be something interesting playing with that. Are we going to get that here? Or is it just going to be, I could feel like they could have tried to have gone with the route of trying to having it believe that it's Alex, even though it's not Alex. And then we'll see what kind of way they end up actually going, because of the fact that it got cut 3 episodes short. So they could end up doing like, oh yeah, it's Alex, but then the later reveal would have been that it thinks it's Alex and it's not Alex. It's all the memories, all the things of Alex and all that stuff. It believes it's Alex, but it's not really 100% Alex there. So I think that could be something interesting to play with. We'll just have to wait and see as to where things go with this show. So then we end this episode with also Maria Sunderland kind of seeing her daughter. At the beginning of the episode, she had like a trance type thing where she was kind of meeting up with the witch woman type thing, trying to, I guess, talk to the dead. And it's unclear if at the end of the episode, when she's laying in the bed, she sees her dead daughter there. Is she just hallucinating that her daughter there? Is her daughter actually there? Because earlier on we had we saw that Abby Crane had a she woke up to a nightmare of her dead friend, in her room, right, about to grab her hand if she was going to grab her phone. So, is that kind of something that's like, is something going on mystically type thing that's kind of giving everyone close to this dead person hallucinations, nightmares type thing? Abby, it's only affecting her nightmares, but her mother, who's playing with fire a little bit, is starting to see it everywhere. So that was unclear to see as to where things go with that. That'll be quite cool to see as to where things go with that in the next episode, because it was unclear whether or not when Avery opened up the door and he saw his wife there lying there, if he could see that the person was there or not, or if the person was just a hallucination that she's seeing type thing. So that'll be something interesting to see. So I'm gonna lean a little bit more towards hallucination right now, because it sounds like this is not her first time approaching this witch woman to try and speak to her dead daughter type thing. So I think that could be something fun to see as to where things go. So I'm really excited to see as to where things go with this show. Like I said, it's disappointing that it's canceled already. Right after the first episode, they canceled it so soon. But the idea, hopefully this thing can get revived somehow, and the idea of putting $80 million, a stupid amount of money into TV shows needs to be promoted, and I think we need to have more shows like this that put a lot of money into their shows, and do away with the shows that have tiny budgets. Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, all those stuff. I like those shows, are really fun, but they would be amazing if they had 10 times the budget. If you had a huge budget, if you had a way bigger budget on those shows, those would be so good if they just kind of, doubled, tripled, or even 10 times their budget than they have. Those shows would be amazing like that, and that's what I want to promote with this, is pushing all these shows to getting bigger budgets like this. So if this thing could get revived and keep the same quality and stuff, then we'll see as to where things go. So we'll have to wait and see as to how things go with this. Hopefully, I don't know if I see anything getting picked up with this. It's because of how high the budget is. Someone with there's only a certain amount of channels who can just pick this up and get a season 2 right away. Like Netflix, HBO, very few people can actually afford, I think could afford this $80 million budget. But one of my other hopes is that whenever Disney eventually puts out their streaming service and they start putting out content right away with $100 million budget, you got your Mandalorian, your all your Marvel Studios stuff, all those things with stupidly huge budgets, with like $100 million budgets. If those come out, and the success of those could then later on promote this show to getting revived. So we'll have to just wait and see. For me, it's just to see as to where this show ends and how long from the ending of this show until we get to Disney puts out their stuff. If we don't get the Disney stuff until like 2020, 2022, starts to get a bit far. But if we get the Disney shows late 2019, late this year, or early 2020, and there's only been a year, it's only been a year from the end of this show, then maybe we could get a pickup. This could get picked up and saved by another studio after the success of that. So I feel like in the future, well, depending on how far it is, the Disney show, the Disney streaming service could help bring interest in and showing people that there is here's how you make profit for on such hugely expensive TV shows. So we'll just have to wait and see as to where things go with this. Again, hashtag save Swamp Thing, and definitely can't wait to see as to where things could go with this show. So hopefully we don't start seeing the cutbacks too early in this show. If the cutbacks can be only apparent later on in the ending of the season, then we could definitely get a new. We could definitely see some potential here. So let me know what you think, guys, about this episode in the comments below. And again, hashtag save Swamp Thing. Peace out.
Swamp Thing. You are